First of all, hello juniors. We all hope that you're doing good and having a smooth ride in your journey so far at IIITB. I'm Ankriti Arora, a member of Zense. First of all, thank you so much for plugging into the session. Hope you all learned something out of it, and we just hope that you don't get intimidated. Even if you do, don't mind to ask doubts whenever you want. Like you can ask us doubts in between or even after the session. As of now, we have 64 participants. Okay. So I'm assuming that you guys have done a good amount of projects or group projects so far. And I'm sure you guys agree that there's a lot to explore. So talking about Zense, Zense is a student-run software development club. And it's one of the oldest running clubs of our institute. At Zense, we develop on our ideas and make it into a reality. I'm sure you remember about us from the induction. There are projects from our club that are being used by institutes across the world, like Circuitverse, Canvas board. I'm sure in your first semester digital design course, you might have used Circuitverse. So yes, that was also developed by members of Zense. There's a lot more about us on our website, zense.co.in and GitHub as well. So do check it out. Coming to the most asked question, how do we be a member of Zense? Well, you can be a member of Zense by applying for it when we roll out our registration forms. You can submit your projects, and after an interview round, you can join us if you get selected. But before that, I just wanted to let you guys know that there's something coming up for you all. Don't want to give any spoilers, but just be ready for an exciting event coming up planned by Zense. Well, now coming to the session, this session is specifically being conducted for the juniors, but obviously IMT 2020 and IMT 2019 is also welcomed. We hope you all learn something out of it. We would be starting with the basics of version control led by Sriram from Zense. And then from LeanIn, we have Manasa Didi, who would dive deeper into the theoretical and practical part of GitHub. We also have a fun activity planned for you guys. So please ensure that you take part and stay till the very end of the session and learn along. Hope you guys enjoy. Now I would call upon Sriram to continue.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes, Sriram, you are.
Okay, so fine, I'll begin then. So let's start with what Git is in the first place. So it's nothing but a version control system. So what is a version control system? Version control is nothing but a system that records changes to files over time. So suppose you have a project, say it's your Python project. So what do you think are the advantages to having a history of what your project looked like to get to the final product? What do you think that would, how that would help us? If any of you could unmute yourselves.
Hello, Bhaiya.
Yeah, go on.
Like if someone makes some changes to our code and for some reason it does not work as intended, so we can know what the person changed in our code. So we can go back and correct it.
Exactly. So it enables testing and experimentation. So we don't need to worry about losing our project forever. There'll always be some record of a working copy of our project. So yeah, and also it allows collaboration. Those are two good points. Does anyone have anything else to say? So yeah, that's basically most important aspects of version control. So, and it also guarantees backups. We could check differences with previous versions of our project if you would like to. So you guys are done with your Python projects, right? Or C projects? You did have C and Python courses in your first semester, right? No, not projects. Oh, so didn't you have any? Oh, right. Okay. Suppose you do decide to make a project and collaborate with other people. So what do you think is these are starting with object-oriented programming? Right. Okay, fine. So let's say you wanted to make a project and you want to collaborate with, and suppose your teammates. Yeah. So if we're in for Git or GitHub, what do you think would be your solution to solving this problem of collaboration and version control? So I guess one solution you could say is using WhatsApp. So suppose you have 4 team members, A, B, C, D. A could upload a zipped version of the starting version of the project. Then B could add on to that and then upload his own zipped version and then so on. That makes sense, right? Like it's not very optimal, but it's something. It's version control. So wait, let me. Suppose we have WhatsApp. These be the team members, A, B, C, and say D. Suppose it's A. C, B. So A could, I don't know, make 1.zip. This is WhatsApp. And you're making some Python project, say some PyProj. So now B can download this version. He could make his own edits and then upload an updated version, suppose 2.zip. And C can do the same. He can download 2.zip, make his own set of edits, and 3.zip. So you get an idea of what's happening here, right? So suppose this is 1.zip, version 1. So this gives rise to version 2 and version 3. Version 1 made by A, 2 by B, and 3 by C. So what do you think the shortcomings are for a method like this? You think it's optimal? Anyone can unmute themselves and tell me why this isn't optimal?
Yeah, so in case 2 people are working on the same time on the same project, like for example, on the boiler code, they are working on different aspects, then it would be very difficult to integrate both of them.
Yeah, exactly. So suppose D here, he downloads 1.zip and then creates 4.zip, suppose. So now this would lead to 4. Suppose, I don't know, 2 and 3, they add their own functions. Suppose it's a game project. 2 and 3 make their own game enemies or something. And 4 is like some physics update, suppose, is something. So now there's an obvious problem here. 2 and 3 have changes that aren't, recorded in this 4.zip. So someone would have to, I don't know, D will have to take 4 and 3 and manually merge both of them together. And then upload 5.zip. So this is very slow. And if you have like some 100 people working and each of them have their own branches, like this, for example, let's call this a branch, 1 to 2, 2 to 3. This is a branch. That's it. So we'll have like multiple branches and then merging them all together manually, that'll be very difficult. You follow, right? Guys? So, okay. Right. So this is where Git and GitHub come into picture. So Git is also a version control system. It lets you, it keeps track of all your previous states of the project. And it also lets you make branches. So we'll come to that. We'll define Git branches in a little bit. But for two different branches, it also has the functionality to merge, different sequences of snapshots. So do you guys have any doubts so far? That's what Git does. Okay, let's move on then. So these are the basics of Git, like absolute basics. Those are repositories, commits, and branches. So commits are nothing but these snapshots of versions. So 1.zip, 2.zip. These are like different versions of the project. Right? So one is the first version, first snapshot. And then 2.zip is nothing but 1.zip, but a few additional changes, some change in code. So some change in code in one leads to two, and he decides to say, okay, let's take a snapshot of this and upload it to WhatsApp. Well, let's move on from the WhatsApp example. Let's just say to some remote repository, some remote database. So yeah, so 1, 2, 3, 4, these are all Git analogs to commits. And branches are the same as what I've described before.
Yeah,
A
I
sequence
think
of
they'll get a
comments.
better idea like once we show it to them, like when making a PR, when we explain, I think they will be able to get a better
Yeah,
idea.
exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is the rough idea of what branches are and commits. And a repository, a Git repository is nothing but it's a hidden folder. It's named .git. So once you initialize this, it keeps track of the current version of your project and all previous versions of the project. So this .git folder, the repository is what we share amongst collaborators. This is what gets copied locally that we'll see in the future. And yeah, I guess this is what Git does. So to summarize, let's say we have, so what's an optimal workflow look like? So we have some remote repository hosted on the web. So suppose A is there, same Python project. He decides to make a local copy of this remote repository. So he makes a local clone of this remote repository. Let this be our project. Repository is nothing but a representation of project, and it's the history of its states and all that. So now he makes a set of commits to his own version of the repository, and then he pushes them to the remote repository. So this is what an ideal workflow should look like. This is what Git and GitHub let you do. GitHub is nothing but a hosting service that lets you host a remote repository. So you can collaborate without GitHub. You could use other hosting services like GitLab or Bitbucket. But for this session, we'll introduce you to GitHub. That's enough for a beginner's level. And yeah, this is A, suppose, and B could do the same thing. He could make a local clone of this remote repository, make a sequence of commits, his own commits. And then you can push those changes to the remote repository. So then, since branching exists,
Do you want to
since
master
Git branching,
programming and pointers? At Log2Base 2, you can easily visualize the C. If you're learning to code, you've probably heard of Git and GitHub. These are some must-know tools for any web developer, but they're not
Someone
easy
might have to unmute. Nitish,
have
I think you not unmuted yourself.
yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, so yeah, B can do the same thing to the remote repository. He can make his own commits and push them to the remote repository. So, and then since GitHub allows merging functionality, they both can collaborate at the same time. And, all is well. That's pretty much the essence of what Git and GitHub lets you do. So yeah, now Manasa Didi will take you through how you can initialize a GitHub repository and what GitHub lets you do and all that. The GitHub user interface.
Yeah, so first of all, I hope all of you have a GitHub account. So if anyone doesn't have a GitHub account, please create one immediately, so that you guys can also work, make a PR simultaneously. Also, have all of you installed Git locally? Like, if anybody hasn't, just put it on the chat. Okay, I'm assuming everybody has. So yeah, we'll get started. Sriram, can you stop sharing your screen? I'll share mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Are you guys able to see my screen?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Okay, cool. So first of all, if you have Git installed locally, you will have to connect it to your GitHub account. So whatever Sriram told about Git, it being a version control system. So what is GitHub? So GitHub is this website where you have your repositories, and then through Git, using Git, you connect to that. I'll just show you how you can connect also. Yeah, first of all, if you guys haven't done this, just do git config. You guys should be able to see your email ID and username. If not, just try this out. Just do this, these commands. I'll put it on the chat. Just once you do that, it'll help you guys connect Git that you have installed locally to your GitHub account. Yeah, use the email ID that you've used, that you've connected to your GitHub account, and your name is your GitHub username. Yeah, once you guys are done with that, you can just make sure that that's done correctly by checking with this command. And then we'll get started. Once you put this git config -- list, that should display your username as well as your email ID. Cool. Okay. So yeah, so basically in this session, I'll teach you guys what is cloning a repository, forking a repository, and how to make a pull request, and also how to update latest changes from the original repo. So first of all, what is a repository? That's what, like Sriram mentioned, it's where you keep all your code and it's there on GitHub. So you guys can try it out simultaneously too. So we'll create a new repo. Yeah. So
By the way, for those who just are curious about what a README file is, essentially it's a file that tells everyone, whoever is going to visit your project, what the project is about and how you can contribute and so on. There are many good practices for README files, but right now we're going to leave it blank because the session is more about making a pull request. But if at all you're going to make a project and host it on GitHub, better look into some good README practices.
Yeah, so like we just said, README is basically like your documentation kind of thing. So first of all, what is cloning a repo and what is forking a repo? So suppose we have some other repo, like one of your friends has created a repository and you want to try it out locally, like whatever web app or something that he's done, you want to try it out locally. So for that, you clone the repo. Cloning the repo is basically like creating a copy of the repository on your local system. Forking a repo is getting a copy of that repository on GitHub. So if you want to make a pull request or if you want to contribute in any way to somebody's repository, you have to fork it. Like if you clone and then directly try to push your code to that particular repository, it won't work because normally they wouldn't have given right access to everybody. Like you'll have only access to make a pull request. And to make a pull request, you'll have to fork the repo. So I'll share my repo link and you guys please fork it. Then we'll start making a pull request. Yeah, so how do we fork? I'll just show that to you through my friend's repository. So she had created this repo. So to fork it, where do you want to fork that? So here I have multiple things, but just select your personal ID. Yeah, so here I have my own copy of my friend's repository. So you guys also please do that. Yeah, 5 of you have forked. Everybody try that out, please. Okay, so let's continue. So once you fork that repository, like once you have your own fork, you'll have to clone it in order to make a, like, see, there are two ways of doing things. One is you can add file directly here. But normally when we work on like big open source projects, we'll want to check our changes locally, right? Like you'll maybe want to make changes and check how it's working on, you know, the website and all of that. So for that, you'll have to clone it. So to clone, what you have to do is copy this particular thing. This is the remote repositories URL. So since you guys have, what you have to do is you have to take this off your fork. Don't take the URL of my repository. The fork that you have, take that URL. Like here, I have fork from Gayatri is this one. So I'll be taking that. You guys also take the URL of your fork. Once you guys are done with that, go to your terminal and clone it. So to clone a repository, the command is git clone and then the URL. Okay, so that's been done. So I hope I'm not going. Can you show how to fork again? Just a minute. Nimish, so to fork here, like go to the original repo, like go to my repository and fork it here. Click this and fork. Is that clear? Okay, cool. Yeah, so I hope all of you guys have cloned the repository. So once you do that, so now I'll tell you guys about this important command, git status. It tells you the status, like it basically gives you the status of your cloned, like basically it tells you which branch you're on and whether any changes are there to be committed, etc. So currently we're on the main branch. So so what is a branch? Like, you know, the code main branch exists by default. So every time you make a change or add a new feature or something, it's suggested that you make it in a different branch. So that like it's you basically used to maintain different versions. And once you feel whatever code is there in that particular branch is good, you can merge it. So here, let's create a new branch. Yeah, so the command for creating a branch is this. Okay, so we have switched to a new branch, branch one. So basically, whenever we're checking out from a particular branch, it's created as a child branch. So for example, if we, so basically branch is a subdivision of the branch one is a subdivision of main. So to check the status of all branches, like what all branches we have, just do this git branch -a. I'll be sharing a cheat sheet kind of thing, like with a list of all important commands. But just for you guys to try it out now, just check out into a new branch. For that, the reason why it will be saying that is you haven't gone into that. So once you clone, you have to cd, like go into that particular folder. Did that resolve the issue? Yeah, cool. Does cloning initialize a Git repo? Yeah, Nimish, the same thing for you as well. Like you'll have to go into LeanIn Zense, go into that particular folder, and then it'll work. Rohit, I didn't really get your question. Like, does cloning initialize a Git repo in present working directory? Like, yeah, it just clones that original repo. As in, like, it just whatever's there in the original repo, it's there in your local machine once you clone it. Yeah. Okay. So cool. Then now let's make some change. Like, say I'll just add a file, a txt file. Okay. Just a basic this one. So now, one thing with Git is there are three areas. One is the working area. One is the, can you please explain what link you entered for Git clone? You have to clone the original repo. So you will have to clone this. Just copy this command, it should work. Yeah, so basically in Git, there are three areas. One is the working area, staging area, and then the repository itself. So what is working area? Working area is where you make all the changes to that particular repository. Staging area is like once you're pakka with those things, you want to push it, you put it into the staging area. So staging area is basically like just before you actually push it into the repository, it stays, the changes stay in the staging area. So yeah. Oh, right, my bad. So now let's just see what the status is, git status. Yeah, so what does it say? Untracked file, test.txt, that's the file that I added. That is an untracked file. So what does it mean by untracked? Untracked files are those that are there in the working area, like they are not yet in the staging area. So to add files, like, okay, whatever changes I make, once they're in the working area, I can still change it. Like, I can go edit this particular file, I can delete it, anything. So now, once I'm kind of, guaranteed with this, I'll push it into the staging area. So to push any file, to push all your changes, just do git add dot. If you want to put just a particular thing, git add and the file name, okay? Your file name. Here I've added everything. So we'll just see the status once. So yeah, now it's in the staging area. So what does this mean? Now it's ready to be committed. So what do you mean by commit? Like Sriram mentioned, commit is a screenshot of your repo, like once you make changes. So here, see, now this is there in the staging area. It's ready to be pushed to the actual repository. So I hope you guys have followed till here, and you guys are, you have added the changes to the staging area. If anybody has any doubts, just let me know. Yeah, okay. One more thing that I forgot to mention. So basically, in order to push your changes, like initially earlier and all, GitHub used to allow people to push changes just by putting their username and password. Now you have to create something called personal access key. I'll just show you what that is. So guys, just follow me here. Go to settings and go to developer settings, personal access tokens. You guys are with me on this, right? Vijay, can you help Devendra with the commands? Like,
Yeah, sure.
thank you. Yeah, so what you guys have to do here is generate a new token and select repo and workflow. I already have a token, so I'll not be creating another one, but just select repo and workflow. Then generate token, save it, because once you like go out of that, it won't be stored. That's why. Yeah, Nimish, how to add the file? No, I just opened it in my this one like VS Code. You can just add it like wherever you want. If you're using Vim, just open a file, add whatever you want to it, and save it. If you meant adding to the staging environment, it's git add dot. That will push the changes to the staging environment. Okay, so now let's commit it.
While you're commenting it, I think some people might be a little confused about why you want to make a new branch. Why can't you just do it on the main branch? While 90% of the cases you can do it on the main branch, if you have very big projects or if you have multiple versions of the project, like I mentioned earlier, for example, it's a development stage, an experimental stage, and so on, you would want to use branches. And that is one benefit that GitHub provides over, let's say, Google Drive. Even though that is a shared file service like GitHub, you can have multiple copies and so on. The one benefit you do get with GitHub is you get this branching access, which means that you can have multiple copies of the same project, but you can make individual copies that are specific to that branch. And so when you're typically making a PR, you'd want to create your own branch because you could have multiple, because A, that could be a stipulation of the project, or B, you're doing your own changes. So it's better that you isolate your changes from the main branch. But when you're merging it, you can choose which branch you want to merge it to in your parent repository. Normally that will be the main branch. But it's always good practice to create a branch before staging your PR on your local machine.
Yeah, and one more reason why branching is important is like suppose you're working on 3 pull requests for a big open source project simultaneously, like 3 features. You wouldn't want to and say one of the feature it's approved, like they say let's merge it, but the other 2 features require a lot of changes. If you put everything in the main branch, then it's difficult for you guys itself to manage. But if you have it in different branches and you make different PRs, so that way one of the PRs can get merged and the others like you can work on it subsequently. Yeah, one feature, one PR, one branch. So now committing git commit -m and then some message. Yeah. This is not ideally a very good practice. So basically commit messages have to be meaningful. Like normally when you contribute to some big repo, just say added whatever feature that is, like say added a test file or whatever you did. So git commit -m. -m indicates that you're putting a message there. Okay, we'll commit that. Cool. So this shows that this is the ID. So this ID is like normally you won't need it, but especially when you want to revert a commit and all of that, you'll require this ID. So it tells you what exactly happened in this particular commit. One file is changed and there's one insertion. Okay. Yeah. Nimish, just go through what Vijay has put. That's there. Cool. So now it's time to push this. So this, I just tell you what this statement means. Yeah, git push origin branch one. So what exactly does origin mean? So basically there are two main terms that you'll encounter while working on Git and GitHub. That is upstream and then origin. So origin is basically the repo that you cloned. So in this case, it will be the fork. So basically, and upstream is the original repo. So in this case, it will be my repo. So you guys fork my repository and then cloned the fork, right? So in this case, upstream will be my original repository and origin will be your fork. So let's push it. And in this password, please put in that personal access token that was generated. Yeah, how can I see my personal access token? Just go to settings, developer settings, and personal access tokens. You'll have to generate a new one.
Yeah, so Siddharth, to answer your question, so typically when you're committing something, because see, the real assumption here is that you're working in a group, so you won't know what you did, but to let the group know what you did or to let other contributors know what you did, you have to mention what you have done in that commit or what you have staged or what is exactly the purpose of you adding this change or bug fix. And why can't it be left blank? Typically, that's a syntactical thing, but more often than not, it's a very bad practice to leave blank commit messages or very vague ones like added file, because yeah, I mean, if it's going to be just one person who's committing to one repository, fine, okay, you can leave it blank. But even then, I won't suggest it. It's always good practice to leave good and well-formed commit messages. Also, typically, if you have large projects, they have stipulations on what your commit message should be because they run automated tests on the code that you submitted to make sure that it will fit their workflow. And those automated tests would require you to have a particular style of commit message. For example, add file. If you write added file, it would reject it automatically. So that is quite high level. But to answer your question, it's good practice and also it's necessary at this point to add instructions or to add description of what you did. So I hope that answers your question.
Couple of questions in the chat. Vidish, yeah, if you push to the fork repo, yeah, the changes are reflected to your fork repo, but using that you can make a pull request. Just give me a minute, I'll show that as well. There's some issue with my branch, so I just created another one.
Sharing my screen.
Yeah, just give me a minute.
Yep.
I'm sorry. So now it's visible, right? My screen, Vijay?
Yeah, it's visible now.
Yeah. So in your fork, this kind of thing should be visible once you push. So I hope you guys followed me on the push step. Git push origin and then the branch. I just renamed my branch here. So git push origin and then your branch name. Just put in your username and password will be that personal access token that you guys had created. And once you push, you will be getting this kind of a thing. Okay. You will be getting it even on the original repo. See, this is my forked repo. This is the original one. Gayatri, this one is the original one that I had forked. Once you go to that, so basically, if you guys go to my original repo, this kind of thing will be visible. I hope that's visible for all of you guys. No, Saimadhavan, you don't have to create a new personal access token each time. So basically, validity is there for I think 30 days or something. You can select that. So that personal access token can be valid for 30 days or even more. Just make sure you save it because the visibility is gone once you go out of that page. No, Rohit, once you do git push, it comes to that particular branch in your fork. It still doesn't go to the original repository. So once you guys are done with that, just make a pull request. Okay, just click compare and pull request. I hope you guys have followed me until this step. Just say compare and pull request. Okay, so just say create pull request. Yeah, so 3 of you have actually done it. Wow, nice. Yeah, all of you do this. Create a pull request, and that's it. We're pretty much covered the important part. I'm not able to push it. Can you like copy paste the exact this? Okay, Bhavel. First of all, you have cloned your fork, right? I hope you have not cloned my original repository. You'll be able to push only to your fork, you only to your repo. Because I wouldn't have made, you can push only to those where you're a contributor. Once I make you guys a contributor to my repo, you can directly push. Otherwise, you'll have to go through a pull request process. Are you getting that 403 error or something? Yeah, this is correct. Oh yeah, 403. I don't know why this is the right thing.
Yeah, 403 means bad credentials. So just check if you've done your git config properly, and also check if you're given the correct personal access token.
Yeah, can you explain the pull request part again? Yes. So once you push, you would have got something on top, right? So like when you go to the original repo, like a yellow banner kind of thing, which tells pull request can be made. So what exactly is a pull request? So on huge open source projects, like of course they won't give you guys the permission to directly push whatever changes you want to this one. Like it will just be spamming. So basically, it's you can add changes to the repo only through a pull request. So what is a pull request? It's basically your in a particular branch or something, you make your change, and once you submit a PR, the original repo owner can see that PR and say, okay, yeah, this looks good, we'll merge it, and that kind of thing. So I hope I've clarified your question. What might have gone wrong if we face conflicts? What exact conflicts? Like, while merging? No, that, oh, merge conflict. I'll tell you guys that in some time. Yeah. Yes, Sai Madhavan, yeah. Main repo won't change, like the original repo, unless and until I merge any of these pull requests, none of the, your code won't be integrated into my repository. Yes. Yeah, Vidish, I'll explain this now. Like once everyone is done with, creating this basic pull request part, I'll teach you guys this part. Cool. So yeah, what Vidish has asked is a very, very valid thing. So yeah, the changes are not reflected in all forked repos. I'll just show you guys an example of this one particular repository of mine. Okay. Yeah, so this was a project that I was working on. This is Public Labs Plots 2 is the original repository, and this is mine. Okay, this is my forked repo. So what does this show? 239 commits behind the original repository. So this means that my repository hasn't been updated. Like after my last PR was submitted, so many of these commits, 239 commits, have been merged by the original repository. So the moment original repository like gets commits, merges the commits, it does not get reflected in the fork. You will have to do it by yourself. I'll show that now. So git checkout is the command that's used to, check out to a particular branch. So there's something like I mentioned to you guys earlier, Upstream is the original repository. So you'll have to add that original repository as Upstream. So how do we do that? Git remote add Upstream and that original URL. So in this case, you guys will have to add my repository's URL. I have already done this, so you guys can just do that. So git remote -v should show origin will be your fork, Upstream will be the original repository. Okay. Upstream will be the original repository. So what do? We fetch changes from Upstream. Yeah, so in this case, like I told you guys, my fork is 239 commits behind Upstream. So to do that, I use this command fetch. Fetch is used to obtain all the latest changes. Okay, yeah, so all of these have been done. And after this, there's another command called rebase. So what does this mean? Rebase is basically like making your particular branch, say in my case, it's the main branch. You make it up to date with Upstream so that it will no longer, say 239 commits or whatever back. So there are two main steps here. One is fetch, that is you get in all the changes, and rebase is merging the changes of Upstream with your main branch. Okay, so yes. Now we'll have to push this. One thing to note here is we'll have to do force push. So whenever we do Upstream, whenever we are trying to get in changes from the Upstream, that is the original repository, we'll have to do a force push, otherwise changes are not reflected. So let's do a force push. I'll refresh here. And yeah, this branch is up to date with the original one. So are you guys clear with this? Vidish, are you clear with that? Updating your fork from the original. Okay, awesome. So I think I've covered pretty much everything. Does anybody have any doubts with regards to whatever I've taught so far? Like be it making a pull request or any of the commands, just unmute or you can ask on chat and we'll clarify that.
Yeah, and just one more thing. After all the doubts are cleared, I'll just do a small revision on it while making a PR. So I made a few notes and things. So just in case you didn't understand something or you're still confused, hopefully that will clear your thing. Also, Bhavil, your 403 error is a very infamous error. I've put a link in the chat. It has a few solutions. You can try them. And yeah, I'm sorry for interrupting. If anyone has any doubts, please let us know.
Yeah, you can either unmute or put it on chat. And I hope all of you were able to create a PR. Let's check how many. Just 9 pull requests. Does anybody have any issue like with creating a pull request? Do you want us to walk you through the process again or anything? Yes. Okay. Oh, sorry. 49 participants and only 9 pull requests. Guys, does anybody else have any issue? Like, are you stuck at any particular part or you guys want us to explain anything again? Just let us know. We'll go through it again. Vijay, you want to take over or shall I only explain?
I can.
Yeah, sure. Okay, I'll stop.
You'll have to make me host though.
Yeah, just a minute. Done.
Right, thanks. So can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, thanks. So hi everyone. So I'll just revise it really shortly. So this is what's a repository. It's hosted on GitHub and so on. And what you should do is first you should fork it because this is not your repository. Just one thing, if it is your repository, you don't need to fork it because you have given yourself right access. Also, if you're part of an organization, typically you don't need to fork it. And so if you join an organization, you'll get it here as well to where you should fork it. Typically just fork it to your account unless you want to put it to your org account. Right, now that you forked, actually, let me explain. So this is all hosted in GitHub. This is the original project you just forked. And this is where I am right now, this blue part. So now I'm going to make a clone of this. So I'm going to use this. So one thing about this, you might have used HTTPS. I use SSH because like you guys use personal access tokens, right? I use the SSH token. It's another way of doing the same thing. Only thing, SSH keys last longer than I think 30 days. So anyway, the operation is the same. So I'm just going to create a new folder for this. So for example, let's say I make a folder for this. And now the command is, I hope you can see my screen. The command is git clone and just copy paste that. And this is one thing. So you can't do any git operations here because all of your files are hosted in this directory. So just read into that. Now you can see all the files here. One thing before you start working on it, always make sure that you have the most recent repository or recent clone. So just a git pull. Just a sanity check first. As you can see, there is really nothing done to this clone, so it's already up to date. Now, if you want to open up the files and see, you can do so, but I'm going to add a new branch, as you know. Give me a second. So this is one thing, so you might get stuck. So just go to man git, and you can see all of the options that you want to do. So in my case, I want to make a new branch, and so we can find that out here. Right, so as you can see over here, you have git branch. So is git checkout and -b, and my new branch name is new branch. That's it. Fine. So as you can see, now if you want to, now I'm going to add a new file. So let's say right now, what have we done here? So if you can look at the diagram here, I have made a fork. I've also made a clone. And now I'm going to make the changes locally, like I just did here. I've navigated the correct branches. I've added, modified, and removed files. Now I have to stage the files and commit the changes to my local repository. Then I can make a PR there. So now if you check your Git status, sorry. Yeah, so as you can see, I have a file that is untracked, which means I have to stage it. So I'm going to add one more thing. So typically when you work with maybe larger projects, you would have files such as something called a .env. And .env is your environment variables. And more often than not, they contain things like your passwords or your database password or your access key and so on. And obviously you don't want to commit those. So that's why you have something called a Git Ignore file, and it will start with this. So this is the file you would have, which I don't have now because I didn't make it. But it's always good practice to make a Git Ignore file. And also, if you start to make a repo on GitHub, you'll also see Git Ignore templates, which you can use for particular language specific things. So I've added them. Now that I've added this file, let me make the status again. Good. I have a added file. So now I'll add a commit message. Also, by the way, if you just don't write the -m, you will be taken to a file where you can then add the message and add additional details like you see on the GUI. I'm not going to do that here, but this is the shortcut, let's say. What are the branches? I'm at new branch. Right, so what have we done here? So I've made change locally. I've navigated to the correct branch. I've staged the changes and I've committed them as you saw with the git commit. And now I'm going to push the changes to my fork. And this is going to update the repository. So let me see if there are any questions in chat. I think I did everything right for a different repo having the name LeanIn session. I don't know about that. You'll have to ask Mansa about that. But for this, so as you can see, I have made the push. And if I look at Git status again, you should ideally see nothing to commit working tree clean. Very good. Now let's go back here and let's look at this. So I have a new branch which had a recent push 1 minute ago. And if I want to see where it is, I can look at commit and pull request. So as you can see, now you can add some more things like right. So I can create a pull request now, or I can create a draft pull request. So this is very useful for contributing on, let's say, big projects. And now, since I am the only one currently, let's say with the context of this repository, I can add comments. So typically maintainers add things here. So let's say, and then they could even close the pull request and so on. You can also, I don't know, spam emoji or whatever. Now I'm going to, this pull request is now open, and this has to be approved by the maintainer. So let me just go through this diagram again.
Just 1 second to answer Kalyan's question. How can I check my commit history? Vijay, just go to your browser. Git log, that is one way. And another thing is like you can check it on GitHub itself next to conversation.
So I'll just show it to me.
So I'll open.
Yeah, you can go to, or let me just show you maybe another repo which has a lot of commits, and I can show you the commit history. So for example, this one has 27 commits. So I'm going to click on that, and you can, the best part is you can now browse the code as, let's say, in the time of a particular commit. So let's say I want to see what the code was like on 5th October, or when I pushed this commit. So I'm going to click on this, and now this will go to a branch, which you can't see, by the way, in Git, for example. Let me see what it is. So yeah, so for example, if I look at all the branches, you can see that you have main, new branch, and so on. You typically will not see these branches like EC and so on. This is your checksum. But if you want to navigate the repository at that time, you can do so. Okay. So yeah, I hope that answers the question. But the more, let's say, user-friendly way is just to git log, and you would see them. So you could see this is the commit signature or the commit checksum. This is the branch, head new branch from this. And yeah, so I hope that answers the question. Any other question? How can I try get? Yeah, exactly. So that's good. And by the way, guys, I know it's quite intimidating for you. It is for me as well. So this just to git minus help, and this will give you a lot of things to do. And I'll just, for example, git help commit. So this can tell you all of the examples and so on, and all the possible options you have. So typically you're going to use like something like this, you know what I mean? So you're going to edit it, you're going to, this is to remove a file, by the way, this is to add a file, and this is to commit the file, and then you stage it later. So this is something that you can definitely use. So like, for example, I forgot how to make a new branch. So I just do git checkout, and you can see what to do. So git checkout branch name, and this is what it is. Okay. So that is something. Another thing is, okay, I'll answer the question first. Can you please explain what is the purpose of staging? So sometimes when you create a file, you don't always want to push it to the repository. You want to keep it locally, but let's say you want to push a few files, then you'd want to stage them. Or let's say you have 10 files and one of them is that aforementioned password file. Obviously, you don't want to stage them. So before staging, you keep the file in your local directory, but let's say quote unquote commit the files to Git, which you actually want to be added into the shared folder. See, remember, this is a shared folder. It's not for any personal information there. So if you have something like personal information, you don't want to stage it, but you want to keep it. So that's why staging comes in handy. And you might think, and it's a very valid point, why do I have to commit and push? Why can't I just push? And this is the reason why. There are many good uses for staging, and I hope this is one of them, and I hope that answers your questions, Madhavan. Otherwise, so let me just continue this. This is the whole, let's say, summary of what you hopefully learned today. You have an original project which is hosted on GitHub. And by the way, GitHub is not the only place where Git is implemented. You can also run Git on your own local server. So you don't even need GitHub. You have other platforms such as DigitalOcean, Bitbucket, and so on, which also uses the Git protocol and hosts many kinds of projects and code bases and so on. And also Git is not only for code. You also have other things on Git and GitHub. So you have your original project is hosted on GitHub. You first make a fork of it. Again, as I mentioned earlier, you don't always need to make a fork of it. For example, if it's your own project, or if it's a project someone has given you right access to, you don't need to fork it, but it's still a good practice to do it unless it's yours, which is also hosted on GitHub. Then you clone that fork, or if you're just wanting to, let's say, look at the code or something, and you're not going to make a PR, you just want to see what the code is, you can always clone the original thing. So then you clone it and you make changes locally after navigating to the correct branch, obviously. Stage them and commit them, then push changes from your clone to your fork, update your fork repository, and make a PR to your original project. And this has to get approved. So you'll have a PR approval cycle, which I probably put in yellow color here. Am I speaking too fast? Is this fine? I don't know. By the way, I will share this with all of you very soon. So yeah, I'm going to stop sharing now. I hope this is clear for all of you.